All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Errol Spence Jr., Tim Bradley, and how Tim Bradley made an admission about what he's been saying about the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Man, in this video, we're going to be going over what Tim Bradley had to say about the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight, and that he has not been exactly telling the truth about what he thinks about it. Before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber, recent subscriber to the channel, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching the videos in the live stream and the video format. If you're new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. All right, so here we go. Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight. Big fight in the division, 147-pound undisputed fight that hopefully will be happening later this year. Everything's kind of quiet out there about what's going on in the negotiations. However, Tim Bradley, who is a commentator for ESPN, and a former 140-pound champion, 147-pound champion, excellent fighter, and a guy who, by the way, really does know boxing. So, nothing that I'm saying on here in this video really is shade at Tim Bradley, but Tim Bradley made an admission in an interview just the other day, and I have to tell you, man, I am really glad that he did it, because it's rare that you hear somebody actually say that. So, what was the admission? It was that pretty much what he had been saying all along about what he thinks happens with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, that he is just on Terence Crawford's team, supports Terence Crawford, and was pretty much laying it on thick about what he thought was going to happen. So what did he say is going to happen, and what does he actually think is going to happen? What he was saying was that Terence Crawford is going to knock out Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford, there's nothing Errol Spence Jr. really can do with Terence, that Terence is just another level fighter, and that he's going to figure out Errol Spence Jr. and he was going to stop Errol Spence Jr., right? So what did he say now? He's like, look, man, I got to tell you the truth. Look, when I was saying that I'm on Terence Crawford's team, it just, I didn't really mean it. I was just kind of being on his side. What I really think it is that this fight is a 50-50 fight, and either guy can win the fight. He said that he's picking Terence Crawford to win the fight, but essentially he's picking him because he is Terence Crawford's friend, and that is pretty much the reason why he's doing it. Now, not saying that he believes that Errol Spence Jr. is going to blow out Terence Crawford or it's some big mismatch or whatever, but you know what it is. When somebody is saying they're leaning towards somebody because it's their friend and it's a 50-50 fight, I don't know, man. I don't think Tim is seeming all that much confident. Now, I got to also tell you, man, that I do think that what happened in the fight, actually the last time that Errol Spence Jr. Was in the ring, I personally think that has something to do with Tim Bradley's prediction. And also, I do believe that it probably should affect what a lot of people think about the fight, right? Not just Tim Bradley. And I'll explain to you why I think that. First, a lot of the conversations obviously about the fight between the two of these guys have been, around fights where Terence Crawford was looking very dominant, right, in several of his fights. Definitely the Sean Porter fight, which was in November of last year. Fight a year before that, which I do believe was the Kell Brook fight. Before that was like Igis Kalvanakis, right? A series of fights where he was looking very dominant. There's also a series of fights at the same time with Errol Spence Jr., where Errol Spence Jr. really was not looking terribly dominant, and in fact had a major car accident and had retina surgery, had a lot of different problems going on, right? So people were looking at the fact that, Errol went the distance with Mikey Garcia, that he went the distance with Sean Porter in a fight that some people thought was a close fight. I personally didn't think it was that close a fight. I thought that although the rounds were hotly contested because it was because those guys had a firefight, I think Errol Spence Jr. won that fight. But regardless, reasonable people can see the same thing and think, come to different conclusions. So some people think that, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr., had a real hard time with Sean Porter. And then if you go into the fight that took place with Danny Garcia he went the distance with Danny Garcia. However, in that last fight with Yordenis Ugas, after he had basically had been back off that car accident for over, 2 years, the car accident was in 2019 and the fight with Yordenis Ugas was in 2022. So he had time, number one, to kind of get the things right that were going on in his career, before the car accident, which Errol Spence Jr. was very honest about, saying that, he had not really been training as hard in between fights and really living the fighter lifestyle. So he was having a lot of fat camps and that type of stuff was going on. And that's not just something that, Errol Spence Jr. said. That's something that Terence Crawford and not Terence Crawford himself, but Bo Mack and Bernie, the boxer, and people out of Terence Crawford's camp were talking about with Errol Spence Jr. There were other people talking about that before that car accident happened, about how Errol was partying and doing different things, right? So he came up off of that. And then he got past the car accident, and then he got 2 years to really train. And when he got in there with Yordenis Ugas, that dude looked much, much stronger. He looked much, much more, active. He looked more like the younger, more aggressive, strong, physically strong Errol Spence. And you also see him in between the fights, working out, staying in shape, not blowing up in weight, and really, having committed himself and having gotten used to those long periods of inactivity, right? So I think he may have looked at that as well. But the one thing that Tim Bradley pointed to and why he said it was a 50-50 fight was the fact that, Terence Crawford, he admitted Terence Crawford is going to have to find a way to get around Errol Spence Jr.'s jab, and how, Errol Spence Jr., that pumping jab, that southpaw jab, where Terence likes to switch to southpaw to take away the guy's jab. Terence is not as good. This is what Tim Bradley said Terence Crawford's not as good in the orthodox stance as he is in the southpaw stance. So being in that southpaw stance, it's going to be tougher for him to take that jab away from Errol Spence, or he's going to fight in the stance that he's not as good at, which is the orthodox stance, right? So that right there is the reason why he gave to say, oh man, I think this is, could be a 50-50 fight. But, again, I just commend the man for making that admission, at least for nothing else, for the pocketbooks of people, right? For the pocketbooks of people that may be betting on him, to admit, look, man, this fight is a lot closer than what I said before, and a lot closer, and a lot closer than guys like James Toney, who says, y'all, man, he's going to knock him out in, 6 rounds. Terence going to knock out Errol in 6 rounds, closer than he says it is. But anyway, great admission by Tim Bradley. You let me know what you think about it in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.